when we think about the last week of Jesus' life, there's obviously a hero to the story, right? It's Jesus. But we've also created a villain, and his name is Judas. Okay, maybe he created the villainy himself. But when I think about Judas, I think maybe we've missed the mark. I mean, I guess all these years I've always just stereotyped Judas. I mean, he was the guy with the evil eyes who lurked on the edge of the disciples. He was the guy who didn't really fit in, who didn't have many friends amongst the 12. He was the guy with the pointy beard, and he was just a tale short of being that evil devil that we think of with the pitchfork and the red horns. I mean, that's how far we've gone, isn't it? I mean, we've made Judas into someone who doesn't look like us or behave like us. He's quite different. But I wonder if we haven't missed the mark. I mean, the Bible tells us that Judas is the guy who they allowed to keep the money. I mean, and when you don't have very much money, do you think you would give the money to the guy who was the outsider, who didn't seem to fit in? I mean, would you really give him that job? I think maybe Judas was just one of the guys. Maybe Judas was the funniest guy amongst them. Maybe he was the jovial guy who always had a smile on his face. Maybe he was the guy who everyone loved, but just was a little bit more quiet than the rest of them. I mean, it'd have been easy to stay in the background when you've got someone like Peter amongst the 12, right? I mean, he always wanted to be up front. So maybe, just maybe, we've got Judas all wrong. But maybe there's one thing that we could say about him that we know for sure. That even though Judas was one of the 12, even though Judas knew who Jesus was, he didn't really know what Jesus was about. One thing that we can say for sure about Judas is that he may have known Jesus' name, but he didn't know his mission. He didn't know his plan. And somehow in the midst of all of this, as Satan was looking for someone, anyone, any way in, and as he was looking, he only needed one man who was near to Jesus, but didn't know him. And that man was Judas. And I wonder if that's not more like some of us than we care to admit. We put on a smile. We draw near to Jesus. We come to church. We do all the right things. But the question is, do we know him? Do we have a relationship with the Lord? That's the question. And as we watch Judas do the things he did, it makes us realize that the most dangerous things about our faith and about Christianity in general probably aren't going to come from outside. They could very easily come from right within our ranks, from those who have spent a lot of time knowing about Jesus without really knowing who he was. And I wonder, man, is that more like you and me than we'd like to admit? That we know a lot about Jesus. We don't know the heart of the man who gave himself, who died on a cross, and who would rise triumphantly. Do you know him?